Okay. Hi, Alison. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you
Thanks so much
here.
for having me.
So, I was really intrigued by your bio about the AI challenge, and I think it's really interesting. Do you think AI is a real threat to human authors at this point?
At this point, probably not. So right now, like with any new technology, they're working out the kinks. It does not seem to be replacing human authors right now, but like with anything, you know, give it time, it might. You never know. So basically, part of what I'm doing for this project is to bring awareness to it.
I know that for music, it scares me what AI is doing because I've been a lifelong musician and technology has been encroaching on music for a long, long time. And just more recently, AI essentially can replace musicians. You know, before it was okay, synthesizers can make sounds that used to have to be made by people playing brass instruments or something like that. But you could still use it. But then when I see things like the Beatles taking old John Lennon recordings and AI enhancing them, I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me. But it also is not a new fight. I mean, if you go back to the 1936 film when Charlie Chaplin did Modern Times, this was exactly what his film was about almost 100 years ago, where machines were taking over and he was trying to make a statement about preserving humanity. I think that's a real possibility that machines are going to take over man and we become slaves to the machines. Maybe not in our lifetime, but I could see it happening in 100 years. What do you think?
Well, it's definitely been the subject of a lot of science fiction books and films. But yeah, it's I think one big problem is that, technology makes our lives easier. Look at us talking right now over video call, right? But at the same time, once it encroaches into some of the things that we love that are things that we feel are irreplaceably human, such as the creative arts, that's where it gets into dangerous territory. Because if you ask most writers, even very successful ones, they will say that the reason they are writers is because it's part of their blood almost. They have to write. They love it. It's just part of who they are. And same, I'm sure, with the musicians, with artists. So for AI to encroach on it, to, as you said, take over what we do, which is so much a part of us, a part of our humanity, that is scary. That is really scary and something that a lot of creators are talking about right now.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. Being an artist is not what you do, it's who you are. With AI, did you know who Robert J. Sawyer is? He's a pretty
Yes.
famous Canadian science fiction writer. He was been on the show a couple of times, and he said that AI will be benign until it gets its own agenda. I think we're kind of a ways off from that yet, but you see all these AI generated videos, like deep fakes, and some of them are really hard to tell that it's not real. And that's scary for media manipulation and political propaganda. To my knowledge, I have not actually read a novel that was written by a computer. Uh, are they really bad? I mean, can you tell that a human did not write them?
I think you can. There are writers right now who are using AI and then helping make it sound more human. So there's definitely a human component to it. Um, but if AI is just doing the writing and it's not being improved upon by people, then yes, I feel you can very strongly tell. One thing that I do is I am actually a publisher of a small literary magazine, and we do get the AI submissions, and they're awful. They're pretty bad. Basically, it sounds the emotional reactions are off, the dialogue is off, it doesn't sound natural. Because when people are talking, for example, we don't speak in complete sentences. We go off on tangents. And I think this is one thing that AI still struggles with, is making those little quirks sound authentic. So you can still tell right now, but again, maybe you can't in a year or 5 years or 10 years.
What if it was applied to a different type of book, like a textbook, where you wouldn't need necessarily the human quirks as much as you would in a novel? Do you think it would be better suited for that, or easier to sort of use it in that application versus using it in a novel, a fiction type?
Definitely. And that's actually where people are using it right now. So, for example, writing nonfiction articles, writing, and fiction writers use it actually to generate, for example, plot lines, or write, the cover copy on the back of a book. That's another common usage for it in the writerly sphere. So people are definitely using it for things that are not as big as a fiction novel, and using it effectively.
Things that don't require as much of a human fingerprint, a
Exactly.
feel,
Yeah.
yeah. That was one of the issues in the writer's strike. When I had actors on the show, they said one of the sticking points was that AI was going to replace extras in movies because it's just easier to generate images sitting in the background at a restaurant than to pay real people to sit there.
I think it goes back to who is actually not only getting the credit for the composition or for the acting or for the music, but also who's profiting off of it. So it's taking money and the spotlight away from smaller people who are just starting out, people who are just getting into the creative arts, and that's terrible. How do you have, everyone starts somewhere. So if you're taking away these small roles in acting, these small publications for writers, or just art from artists, what's going to happen to the next generation? Where are we going to get the people who have to do the time to get to the next level?
I agree. So your challenge was you're going to write one book a week for 52 weeks. How long are these books?
Well, I define a book according to the classic definitions for awards for publications. It's 40,000 words and above. Most books, as you know, are greater than that, are bigger than that. So some of these, obviously, at the end, will have to have more editing, expansion afterwards, but they are complete books. So anything above 40,000 words, if I hit that 40,000 word mark every week, then I am golden. I have made my goal.
Well, that is a very ambitious project. Now, are these books all fictions? Are they all different, or what's the genre, the subject matter of these books?
Yep, most of them are fiction, and all genres. So everything from this week, I am working on a supernatural romance. Last week was sci-fi superhero. I started out the project with YA horror. So I am definitely jumping around and having a lot of fun, just tackling all the genres under the sun pretty much. I will have a nonfiction book at the end, and that is basically saying how I did this and how writers out there can do it too. How can you write a book in a week? Going through a step-by-step process of how I did it and how others can too.
And so the real message here is what? What is the message, aside from the books and the stories you're writing? The AI message. What do you hope to tell people by doing this?
Well, one thing that I work with a lot of authors, both through my magazine, as an editor, and a lot of things that I heard from new writers especially were that with the advent of AI, why should they? Why should they try writing? Why should, AI will take over all writers' jobs. What's the point? So in addition to bringing attention to this and opening a dialogue like we're having right now, I wanted to inspire new writers that you can do it. You can write a book, and you don't have to do it in a week like I am, but there will still be places for writers, for creative writers, and we do it for the love of it. And I want that love to continue. I want writers to be getting up in the morning excited to write and not depressed because, oh, AI can do it for me instead. And I know this is a subject that has crossed all sorts of spheres, not just writing, but it's something that teachers struggle with students, as you said, musicians, actors. So it's something that's going to impact all our lives, no matter if we're in the creative arts or not. So just bringing more attention to it is part of the goal for my project.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Let me pivot over to your new book, because we've got just about 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes. It's called The New Empire. Now, is this part of your 52 books?
Nope, it was published before through Woodhall Press, and it's an alternate history, and it was a lot of fun to write.
Okay, give us a quick synopsis of it.
Sure. The basic premise is that in the 1400s, Chinese ships have come over to the Americas and actually established permanent trading colonies with the indigenous populations. And so by the time this book actually starts in the 1700s, the indigenous populations have banded together into a confederacy that is a world superpower. So they're on an equal playing field with the Europeans that are coming over to colonize the Americas, with Asia. So they're definitely a major player in what shapes the world to come.
Interesting idea. So the Chinese get here before the Europeans do?
Yep. That is the premise, yeah.
Okay. I don't want to give too much of the book away, but is there a major war or a conflict in this?
There is. So part of the book, it's not really in the page, but sort of background is that the Confederacy is at war with the Europeans who are coming over. And one of the major players that comes into play in the book is the Spanish. So think conquistadors, think the missionaries coming over to colonize. So they become a significant antagonist in the book.
We're just about out of time. How many of the 52 books have you knocked off at this point?
Well, I'm in week 5, so I'm on the 5th book.
You're on the
so
fifth book.
I've almost hit the month mark.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Well, thank you for coming on the show. We do have to wind this down. Last question. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I do. Anyone who wants to follow along can go to authorversusai.com to follow along with this journey. Or if you want to check out some of my other books, it's just my author page is AlisonMcBain.com.
Okay, great. Well, Alison, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was a nice conversation. Best of luck with your project. I hope it works out and sends a good message to people not to give up their writing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to chat with you.